few sessions.
Oh, really? Okay, good.
Yes.
Please don't publish without getting the permission. That's all I say. No, but I don't think you can record unless you're doing with a third party app. Yeah. Anyway, Avatar Meher Baba ki jai. Apologies on the delayed start. We start with place of occultism in spiritual life. Part 1, the value of occult experiences. Directly, he is using a footnote, which we'll first finish. In the following 3 parts, occult.
Karthik,
Yeah,
what is the page number in the book?
the physical 179.
Okay.
You're still not able to get in?
No.
Oh, okay.
But I am on in the mobile.
Mobile, and you're able to see the screen there.
Yes.
Okay. So, in the following 3 parts, occult and occultism are generally used in the broadest sense to mean hidden or beyond the range of ordinary experience. But in certain contexts, they mean more specifically psychic or supernatural. One second. God damn it. A minute. So I continue. Um, the spiritual path leading to the emancipation of consciousness brings with it an unfoldment of many psychic capacities which are latent in the human soul. This unfoldment increases the scope and range of human consciousness. These new elements often play an important part in helping or hindering the spiritual emancipation of consciousness. Therefore, the aspirant not only has to understand the value of such experiences as unusual and significant dreams, visions, astral journeys, and glimpses of the subtle world, but he also has to learn to distinguish real occult experiences from hallucinations and delusions. So the title is important here. Psychic capacities help or hinder emancipation. Contempt for occult, born of ignorance, is the next title. Although it is customary to exaggerate the importance of occult experiences, it is not uncommon to doubt their validity and to treat them with contempt usually accorded to all forms of mental aberrations and abnormalities. The attitude of unqualified contempt for occult experiences is, of course, most pronounced in those who are not even absidarians in direct knowledge of the occult. It hurts the ego to admit and feel that there might be vast unexplored fields of the universe that are accessible just to a limited number of persons and from which one happens to be excluded. The undeserved contempt that occultism at times receives is almost always the outcome of profound ignorance about its real meaning. This attitude of contempt is, of course, different from a cautious and critical attitude. Those who have a cautious and critical approach and who are endowed with humility and openness of mind are ever ready to recognize and admit occult phenomena when they occur. As an aspirant, some dreams may be spiritually significant. An aspirant is usually helped by a perfect master through ordinary means, and the master prefers to take him wheeled along the spiritual path. But when there are specific indications, he may also use occult techniques to help the aspirant. Kindly mute, there's one mic that's making noise. special types of dreams are among the common methods used for touching the deeper life of the aspirant. Masters have not infrequently first contacted aspirants by appearing in their dreams. Such dreams, however, have to be carefully distinguished from ordinary dreams. In ordinary dreams, the subtle body is active in exercising its functions of seeing, tasting, smelling, touching, and hearing. But the soul is not using the subtle body with full consciousness. As these experiences in ordinary dreams are received subconsciously, they are in most cases purely subjective, relating to physical activities and concerning the gross world, and are the creations of nascent samskaras stored in the mind. In some cases, however, a dream that is indistinguishable from ordinary dreams may be the reflection in the subconscious of some objective experience of the subtle body and not merely a product of fancy. So this is a smaller subtitle, Rare Types of Dreams. Most dreams are purely subjective and subconscious experiences of the subtle body. They have no spiritual significance except that they can be occasions for forging new samskaras or spending up old ones, and that occasionally they shed light upon the hidden complexes and unfaced problems of one's personality. Such dreams can never include something that is not in some way a part of the past experience of the person. They allow scope for novelty only in respect to new combinations of items that have already appeared in past experience. The rare types of dreams are those about persons and things unknown in this life, but known in some past life or lives. Still more rare are the dreams of persons and things that have never appeared in this life or former lives, but are going to appear in the future. Ordinary dreams are thus utterly different from dreams that have occult significance. Beginnings of occult experience. One second, I'll just get rid of this. Very often, when the aspirant is undergoing psychic unfoldment, he has occasional mystic experiences of the subtle world in the form of significant visions, lights, colors, sounds, smells, or contacts. At first, these experiences are fitful, and the aspirant is likely to treat them as hallucinations. But even when he treats them as hallucinations, he finds it impossible to resist their directive influence because of their intrinsic potency. The spiritual journey, however, becomes more smooth if the aspirant learns to cultivate the right attitude toward occult experiences, which consists in taking them for what they are worth. This balanced attitude is just what the aspirant in the initial stages finds difficult to maintain. The beginner, the balanced attitude is difficult to maintain. The beginner is apt to exaggerate the importance of his glimpses into the inner worlds and to develop an ungovernable craving for repetition of these experiences, or he tries to treat them as abnormal phenomena and underrates their significance. Of these two alternatives, the attitude of exaggerating the importance of occult experiences is the most common because the novelty and rarity of occult experiences are factors that contribute to charging them with overwhelming importance. Craving for occult experiences. In fact, the ego of the aspirant tends to become attached to this new field revealed to him, which gives him the sense of being a rare person admitted to an exclusive privilege. The more experiences a person has, the greater scope he desires. He also develops the habit of depending upon occult goading for each step on the path. Just as those who take drugs get addicted to them and require stimulation even for doing things that they could have formerly do, that they could formerly do without such stimulation. In order to avoid this pitfall for the aspirant, the master takes good care not to cater to his new craving for occult experiences. Such experiences are vouchsafed to the aspirant if and when they are absolutely necessary for spiritual purposes and not when he wants or asks for them. Dealing with craving for occult experiences. If the aspirant is found to attach undue importance to occult experiences or to develop an ungovernable craving for them, the master might deal with this obstacle in his own way by actually weakening or annulling the occult experience that have become the basis for such craving. This is like giving immediate relief to a patient by surgical removal of the cause of a physical disorder. It serves the purpose of protecting the aspirant from forging fresh chains for self limitation. The aspirant must not be allowed, under any circumstances, to get caught up in false values and futile searching. These can only lead to sidetracking and cause unnecessary delay in achieving the real goal, which is to get initiated into the spiritual life. The introduction of the aspirant to occult phenomena is necessarily a very gradual and prolonged process. The master is never anxious to expedite it, as few persons are really qualified to stand the expansion of their experience in this new dimension. Validity of occult experience. In the initial stages, the appearance of occult phenomena is very fitful, and the aspirant sometimes doubts their validity, treating them with caution in order to rule out the possibility of his being deluded. But occult experiences often bear unmistakable credentials of their own validity. Even when any such credentials are not evident, they compel due respect and attention because of the unusual significance, bliss, peace, and directive value with which they are surcharged. Mainly because of these characteristics, the aspirant is able to distinguish real occult experiences from hallucinations and delusions. Occult distinguished from hallucination and delusion. Hallucinations are erroneous perceptions and consist in actually seeing or hearing things that do not really exist. Though they are clearly different in this respect from merely imagining things, they remain objects of doubt in spite of their similarity to normal perceptions. Delusions are even more deceptive because they consist not only in actually seeing things that really do not exist, but also in having complete conviction of their existence. However, hallucinations and delusions do not bring extraordinary bliss or peace to the person who experiences them. The bliss and peace that are attendant upon real occult experiences are fairly reliable criteria by which to distinguish them as genuine. Hallucinations and delusions are like the nightmares of wakeful consciousness. I continue. Aspirant must develop self-confidence. Even when real occult experience can be clearly differentiated from illusion, it suffers in its power and efficacy if it becomes the object of doubt. This can happen when the person who has had the experience discusses the matter with others who, because of their incapacity to understand such things, throw out contrary thoughts and shake his conviction. For this reason, the master usually requires a disciple to maintain strict secrecy about his experiences. Even a deep experience is likely to become weak through the contradiction and skepticism of others, unless the aspirant has learned to follow his own inner experience, irrespective of what others might think or say. If the aspirant is to make quick progress and to profit most from the master's help, he must develop immense and unshakable confidence in himself and the master. He must not look to others for guidance, because those who will understand his problems or his experiences are very few. The aspirant must indeed be prepared to face the possibility of not being completely understood by any of his friends or relatives, for they may be in the dark about the grounds for his ideology and course of action. Effect of doubt on occult experience. If at the time of its occurrence, an occult experience has served the purpose of giving new momentum to spiritual endeavor, it often does not matter if the aspirant considers it in retrospective analysis and thought as being a form of delusion. However, there are some occult experiences that are deliberately vouchsafed to the aspirant in order that they should be standing sources of inspiration and guidance. With regard to these special experiences, it becomes necessary that the aspirant cease doubting their validity and importance. The general attitude of seeking endless corroborations of occult experiences is definitely unhealthy, and the master gives corroborative confirmation only when he considers it necessary. Further, he takes the initiative in the way he judges best in the situation. Whatever he does arises from his unfettered discretion and in no way related to or dependent upon any expectation developed by the aspirant. But when it is spiritually necessary, the master does increase the efficacy of occult experience by confirming its validity and authority through some direct or indirect corroboration from the aspirant's normal range of experience. Astral journeys. In the advancing stages leading to the beginning of the path, the aspirant becomes spiritually prepared for being entrusted with free use of the forces of the inner world of the astral bodies. What is an astral body? See glossary. So we'll have to go to the glossary. We'll go to it after this page. He may then undertake astral journeys in his astral body, leaving the physical body in sleep or wakefulness. The astral journeys that are taken unconsciously are much less important than those undertaken with full consciousness and as a result of deliberate volition. This implies conscious use of the astral body, conscious separation of the astral body from the outer vehicle of the gross body. One second, there's somebody waiting at the door. There is the elusive Samira. The astral journeys, I'll read a little from the back. The astral journeys that are taken unconsciously are much less important than those undertaken with full consciousness and as a result of deliberate volition. This implies conscious use of the astral body. Conscious separation of the astral body from the outer vehicle of the gross body has its own value in making the soul feel its distinction from the gross body and in arriving at fuller control of the gross body. One can, at will, put on and take off the external gross body as if it were a cloak and use the astral body for experiencing the inner world of the astral and for undertaking journeys through it if and when necessary. Expanded scope.
Could you read this again, please?
Sure.
The last 4 lines,
In fact,
3-4 lines.
I'm missing Tushar. Because we're talking astral body. I wish he was here.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I will go and read it in the glossary as well. In the advancing stages leading to the beginning of the path, the aspirant becomes spiritually prepared for being entrusted with free use of the forces of the inner world of the astral bodies. He may then undertake astral journeys in his astral body, leaving the physical body in sleep or wakefulness. The astral journeys that are taken unconsciously are much less important than those taken with full consciousness and as a result of deliberate volition. This implies conscious use of the astral body. Conscious separation of the astral body from the outer vehicle of the gross body has its own value in making the soul feel its distinction from the gross body and in arriving at fuller control of the gross body. One can, at will, put on and take off the external gross body as if it were a cloak and use the astral body for experiencing the inner world of the astral and for undertaking journeys through it if and when necessary. I'll pause here if anybody has anything to say, and meanwhile find the glossary. We'll finish astral the way it has to be. 205 is where we need to come back.
It's in page 410.
Thank you very much. Okay, this is smooth. Mac is so smooth compared to astral.
Body. Yes.
Yes.
It's on top. You.
Yeah. The form that experiences the astral world. Let me increase the font. The form that experiences the astral world, which serves as a link between the gross and subtle worlds. See also semi-subtle world. For further information, see God Speaks. So that then we are done.
Okay.
Semi-subtle bodies. Just 1 second. Semi-subtle world. A stage between the gross and subtle spheres in which the disembodied soul experiences the heaven and hell states through the astral body. Okay, so this is the first time we are reading that this is a stage between the gross and subtle spheres in which the disembodied soul experiences the heaven and hell states through the astral body. What does QV mean? Anybody? So that's we'll leave it as leave it as whatever that is. And again, CD Deshmukh ji has used some complicated words. We were at Astral Journeys. Okay, so I'll continue. We will summarize and discuss this chapter in the end, but if there are any doubts, we can take them right away.
Can I give an example of this astral journey?
Sure. Your audio is a bit poor. You'll have to get the mic closer to your mouth.
Okay, is it okay now?
Much better. Much better. Sure. Go ahead.
Okay, so I had one of these experiences, and there's this gentleman who was trying to tell me that there is a guy called Syed Sufi. I don't know if anyone of you have heard. He conducts some workshops where he calls a lot of people and he gives them the contact of masters, perfect masters and masters through his workshop. I was very intrigued and I was thinking how this happened. So I went and met this gentleman. And before I went to meet this gentleman, there was another guy who was his kind of assistant who said, I can take you on an astral journey and sitting at your home and things like that. So I said, okay, fine. So let me see what these people do, because my path is just I keep experimenting when I feel from heart that I should know about this. So this guy took me to, he said, I'll give you an experience. And he made me sit at home, and then he was on the call and all. Then he took about 10-15 minutes to do some process with me. And then after it was like a meditation session. Then after I reached some place, he said, now you are on your own, and disconnected the call. So what happened with me is I will share you a bit, because I think these experiences have got its importance. At the same time, we have to be clear about how much importance should we give to all of them. So when I went inside, I went to a place where there is this Shamba. You must have heard about Shambhala temple or something. Where technology they call, and
mythical
they say
city.
Yeah. So there is one Shiva temple. I was not aware of all these things actually when I got into this experience. I didn't know anything about it. So I just went into, and in my meditation, I met Maha Avatar Babaji, So I just saw him. And then I was at a place where I saw him. Then I saw that he pointed out towards something, and I went into it. And then I saw there was a waterfall. I went into the waterfall. Some kind of mystical things happened in the meditation. And then I reached a place where there was a Shiva temple. So I got into the Shiva temple, and there was Shiva, but the Shiva was not like our temple Shivas and all that. And I came back. So I came back and asked, after the whole thing was over, it took about 2 hours, this whole thing, even after he disconnected the call. And then he actually told me, after you finish, you come and call me back. So I said, okay, fine. So after the whole thing was over, I called him after 2 hours. I said that this is all, I didn't know all of this because we never went into inquiring what all these things are. So when I called him back, he said, look, this is what happens in the workshop. Actually, people go into workshop and they go into deep experiences. They go to these places. You have gone in the beginning itself. You reached that place, and that there is a temple in Shambhala where this Shiva temple is there. And a lot of people, aspirants, have reached there and they see it in their meditation. Now, how much importance should be given to this experience is then our own understanding whether we get. And this was an astral journey, and all that I figured out later that it is an astral journey, and you just go into it. You go to any place you want and come back. Now, is it equal to God realization, or is it like a delusion? It is not a delusion for sure, but how much importance on the path? It is a confirmation, and then I just moved on from there. This is my experience of the 5 sentences. Thank you.
Jai Meher Baba.
Vinay Baba.
Hi. I have also something to share. Karthik? Karthik? Hello?
Go ahead, I said.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
See, I was in Mehrabad. This is around somewhere in 2010 or 11. You know, I've stopped reading newspapers, all television, everything, you know, nothing from outside, only normal life. I was leading the completely away from mobile also. I don't used to watch links and anything like that. So in Mehrabad, once I met Professor Rathod, and we were having tea, and he was talking about the Kerala thing. There was some, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong with the date, or there was a flood in Kerala. Do you remember?
Yes.
There was a heavy flood in Kerala. So he was
back.
Huh?
Couple of years back, I think.
Couple of years back, yes.
Yeah.
And he started telling me about that, and I was feeling so upset कि मैं newspaper नहीं पढ़ रही हूँ, I'm not reading any newspapers, nothing, and I have no idea about that I said, yeah, how can, you know, why I'm so insensitive, or why I'm so not aware of the situation or something. It was very upsetting for me. And the same day or the next day, I have traveled while in my dream to a place which was extremely beautiful, which has lots of colors of the sea, the green, the blue, bright colors. And I was coming from up to down. It was like a round place. And they were hut kind of a place. You know, there were many huts around, and they were very beautiful. They were in oval shape. And many people were standing there in those huts. And I was going through steps, and I was looking at them. They were little, you know, upset about it, or they were not, you know, they were I don't know how to explain that. Their expressions were, they were in puzzled. So that entire experience, what I had, I went to I went to Rathod uncle again. And I'll ask him, I said that this is what I saw after our discussion. So he explained me that all those souls from the flood, from the Kerala flood,
Mhm.
are in that place, and you have traveled to that place to meet them, and now they are going to be there for some time. They will have their understanding or realization or a breakthrough or whatever you will call it, to understand what had happened to them,
Mhm.
and then slowly and gradually they are going to move from that place. So
Hmm.
few of them will again go back to some cities which is near to sea, and a few will never go to somewhere which is near the water or anything like. So everybody has their own, every soul is going to have their own experiences through this, but this is their safe place to be with. So whenever any calamity happens, every place has this kind of a section or a soul apart. There is a place for them to be safe, to be there, to understand, and then leave. As soon as they understand and as soon as they realize, they leave that place. So this was my small experience through for astro travel. I don't do it on from, I don't make any effort, but sometimes yes, Baba shows some glimpses. But I think, as Vidya says, we should not, this is not it, or this is not something we should focus, or we should not give much importance to it. But this was a beautiful experience, and it made me realize that uh, even when you go oh, in situations like accident or something like that, there is a place for you where you can, rejuvenate yourself. The soul can rejuvenate itself. So that was a very reassuring, and that was a beautiful thing out of that experience. So that was it.
Interesting.
Thank you so much.
Interesting.
Jai Baba, Neha. Jai
Hi,
Baba.
Jai
Yeah,
Baba.
Samira.
Jai Baba
Hi,
Samira.
Jai Baba. You remember yesterday I sent you a little clip which talks about the occult. In that, Baba very clearly says that
Ha ha.
it is not bad to get into the occult if Baba does it himself to bring him closer to you. So, and he talks about not in this thing, but he talks about different worlds. There are different worlds which are other than the earth, which have only heart, which have only brain. There are several worlds which we, and there which do exist, and why there are so many people today is because all those people, it's only on the earth that you get God realization. From the earth you get God realization. You have to be born on this particular place to get God realization in human form. So so all those people finally have to come down to our earth to be born, and
Ha
that is
ha.
the reason why, that's the explanation for the number of human beings we are these days
Ha
today.
ha.
I'm not giving you a proper explanation, but
No, no,
I
no.
just
It's useful to
so
me. Yes, yes, yes,
so
yes.
so
And
that is the reason.
if it
And
happens
sometimes,
spontaneously, if it has happened spontaneously, it is fine. I think it is Baba doing.
no,
One should take it that
yeah,
way,
this is
isn't it?
yeah, so yeah, if you get an occult experience, or if you see, if Vidya has gone through that person, that is also Baba making her go
Baba,
through it.
yes, yes,
Okay,
yes.
and if Karthik has gone to that lady, I think in Chennai, if I remember, you said in that little film,
Yes.
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 that is Baba
It was
making
very
you
nice.
realize. Okay,
Hmm.
Yes.
so
Yes.
don't I mean, if you start doing something occult, Baba might make you do that also, to
Hmm.
realize that it is not right, like talking to the dead, that kind of a thing is
Hmm.
not
Hmm.
done. And that
Hmm.
Bhauji and used to always say, don't use the dead, because the dead are, I mean, those souls are supposed to be used only by Baba. So don't try and do those
Ah.
things. And
Ah.
he'll stop you somehow, but he will
Hmm.
give you that experience. He will make you do it to realize that it's not right for you. So sometimes Baba takes you to that path and stops you. He has
Stops.
to. It's like a
Yes.
little child.
Yes.
If a mother says,
Baba
you should
Baba
stop.
has this habit. If we have a
Yes.
desire for something,
He'll
He
give
will
it to
take
you.
you to that path, and
Yes.
suddenly he will stop it. Suddenly all the sanskaras related with that,
Finish.
desire
Also,
will just vanishes or just go
correct.
away from. That is
Yes,
also
it's
basically.
like when you have the fire, a mother sometimes has to take the
Hmm,
child and make you say hot to realize it is
hmm,
hot. So Baba does.
hmm,
I'm giving you a stupid example, but this is
hmm.
exactly
No,
how
no, no.
he
It
behaves.
is good.
So,
Yeah, it happens
Right.
many a times when our
yes,
desires to stop.
he'll take
The
you there.
Australia trip. All of us, Baba knew that it is not going to happen,
Exactly.
but he
So
made
he
us
knows
do it
everything.
entire exercise. There were 7 of us paying money going to the, but the I don't know, somehow मैंने तो मना कर दिया December में, but even I had the desire to go there, and Baba cut that desire from all of us, I think,
Yeah.
to
So
going
everything,
abroad,
even every
because
discussion,
people come
everything.
down on earth again and again just to
Yeah.
visit abroad or just to visit different places. This is also this desire is also taking us to nowhere, and many souls are suffering because of this desire to travel the world. So there are many things. Anyway, chalo, we are going out of.
Yeah, going out of
Yes.
it.
Sorry.
I think the occult and
Yes,
astral experiences are taking us all over. So let us not get distracted.
yes,
But this
yes,
was very
yes,
useful. Personal journeys and personal experiences make
yes.
us understand and
Uh,
comprehend things better.
uh,
I think
uh,
all of us on the call, though you might not have spoken, must have gone through some of these experiences personally.
yes,
I
yes.
think dreams are the most common. I'll just take a minute and tell you what I have been waiting for a dream where I see Baba. Okay, I have not happened.
Yes,
It's not
yes.
happened.
I
Not
just like
happened.
to say that Baba once mentioned, and Baba mentioned this very specifically, that if you see me in dream, or a Baba, yeah, if I'm in your dream,
Yes,
then that's a real one.
yes.
It's
Yes.
it's not
So
it's nothing else but me. So there is
And
correct.
we
no,
see him
never
every
keep
day
any
at
doubt
night. I'm
about
sure you
my
don't
dream.
remember, but
Huh.
all of us see him every day. We don't remember, but I'm
Yes.
100% sure we all see him. Okay,
Uh,
Yes.
so
So just to finish that, I have been waiting since the last 5 years patiently for a dream. No
though you
sign.
must have seen him, you don't remember.
My wife had a fully conscious dream in the last 1 month. She's not, I
ah,
mean, she's not into
beautiful.
Baba, yeah, but she had a great
Say that
experience where she was sitting next to Baba for a long time, and she was at his feet, and they were working together on something. So interesting, but
Beautiful. How
yeah,
nice. How
yeah,
nice.
very nice.
Baba is
So with
working on her simultaneously, Karthik.
oh, absolutely, he's working on all of
Uh, uh,
it. So
on
with
why do
that,
we
any questions on the aspects, any doubts on what is being described as occultism here? Any discussion points? So if there is none, I will just continue. But I mean, I just want to make sure that we give an opportunity for that. Expanded scope
Uh,
for
uh,
advancement. Yeah, Mama.
in the life of Shankara also this aspect is brought out vividly.
Okay.
There are a lot of stories associated. Whenever he tries to explain certain things which are difficult for some people, he has shown this by actually doing it, going into astral body and all that. Details I don't have, but it is clearly referred to in Shankara's life.
Yeah, so I think even Sai Baba had some astral experiences that it is in the
all the
Satcharit.
time. All the
Yes,
time. It is
yes.
mentioned in
So
Science
Yes,
Satcharit. Many
yeah,
experiences.
Sai Baba was a god sannyasi, a god saint. So
Yeah.
he used to sleep on a small string which is there in his room, and he used to remove his arms and he used to remove his legs and be on that string. So
And the string was on the top of
yeah, on that place where you used to have the
Hmm.
fire burning in that room. That string was there for a long time. So
Yes, yes, yes.
yeah, so I think all the masters, however, I just want to finish off that. All the masters, however, try to dissuade in their communications and in their messages people and their followers from getting too deeply involved in that. And I think there is a lesson in that for all of us, because it is not the real thing anyway, right? But it is the most interesting and titillating, right? So obviously one is drawn towards that, and as mature aspirants on the path, we have to make sure that we follow and stay away without getting excited, right? So like Vidya did, she went there because she saw that experience, it's done, tick, and then she said, hey, this is not it, neti, right? So I think that's the important takeaway for us. It's not to be ignored, but not to be sucked into. That's my 2 pence. Right. So with that, I'll continue. Expanded scope for advancement. The sights, smiles, the sights, smells, tastes, contacts, and sounds that are experienced through conscious use of the astral body are clear and definite, like the experiences gained through conscious use of the gross body. They are not vague or subjective as in ordinary dreams, but are as objective and effective as other experiences of wakeful consciousness. The ability to undertake astral journeys, therefore, involves considerable expansion of one's scope for experience. It brings opportunities for promoting one's own spiritual advancement, which begins with the involution of consciousness. Occult experience is no substitute for inner effort. The harnessing of occult forces is not to be regarded in any way as a substitute for inner effort the aspirant must make to advance further. When occult experiences are gifts from a perfect master, they serve the purpose of unveiling much of the hitherto obscured intuition, removing some of the difficulties leading toward the spiritual path, and filling the aspirant with the great confidence and enthusiasm that are necessary to cope with the new requirements at each stage. But the aspirant makes real progress by putting into practice the best intuitions of his heart, not being the merely passive recipient of occult experiences. Yeah, so with that, we go to the part 2 of this. Place of occultism in spiritual life, part 2, the relationship with the master in spiritual life. People constantly interacting on inner spheres. Let me just check how we're doing on time. 20. Okay. Those who have even a preliminary acquaintance with the structure and laws of the inner spheres of existence know that complete isolation of human beings is a figment of the imagination. Whether they desire it or not, all persons are constantly acting and interacting upon each other by their very existence, even when they do not establish any contact on the physical plane. There are no limits to the spreading of the influence of the individual. The magnetic influence of the subtle spheres knows no barriers of national frontiers or any other conventional limitations. Good thoughts as well as evil thoughts, cheerful moods as well as gloomy moods, noble and expansive feelings as well as petty and narrow emotions, unselfish aspirations as well as selfish ambitions, all these have a tendency to spread out and influence others, even when they are not expressed in word or deeds. The world of mental life is as much a unified system as the world of gross matter. The gross world, as a vehicle of spiritual life, has its own indubitable importance, but the links and connections existing between different persons can by no means be fully estimated if one merely considers the tangible.
I think very powerful lines here.
Yes.
Even the intents are equally important, and then whatever we think of others is Yeah, that's what is Baba is saying. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll read the last line again. The gross world as a vehicle of spiritual life has its own indubitable importance, but the links and connections existing between different persons can by no means be fully estimated if one merely considers the tangible transactions that take place in the gross world.
Yeah.
Value of darshan and sahvas, the next section. For an aspirant to see a perfect master does not yield its full significance except in the context of all the corresponding
This is a
happenings.
different subject. We have finished one. I think Kama or anyone should talk about that, and then we should. Darshan and Sehvas is again something very important. And
Yeah,
Kama.
Kama, you have anything to summarize or add to our discussions before we continue?
I think the previous chapter that we read, the one thing that came out was basically that one should not be dependent on occult experiences. They are basically there as another way of confirming, reinforcing our spiritual path. And there is this thing called auto writing, very famous. And I would not go deep into it, but I know of cases where people have become so dependent on auto writing that there is a gentleman who would call this person who did the auto writing almost daily, number of times, even to move the chair. What is Baba telling me to do? You know.
Yes.
So I would not, so I think that we have to remember that even any kind of visions, I'm again quoting, I think Baba has said this before, but Ramana Maharshi was very clear. He said, anything that comes and goes, which is temporary, even a vision of Vishnu, Shiva, Krishna, whatever, these images that come and go, they are only temporary. Because the only goal of a human being is God realization. So we have to be very clear, our focus should be there. But these occult experiences, if it happens, intuitively you will know whether it is happening for the right, for the right thing. So that's what I have to say about it. And another thing is why I chose these 3 chapters on occult is because we had been reading about avatars and perfect masters. So these 3 chapters talk about how the perfect masters help the aspirants. So that's why we have these 3 chapters. Jai Baba.
No, I think the most important point you mentioned in the last, right? It is for us to discover, hone up, and sharpen our sense of intuition. So there is always another voice that tells you something else, right? You might go through an experience and there is another voice telling you something else. It is for us to first learn to listen to that voice, and that's and sharpen that way of listening and absorbing that. And as Kama put it, you'll very soon pick up what is the real one and what is not, and not get deluded, to use Baba's word, by these occultist experiences beyond the necessary. There is a necessity, but not beyond the necessity. Right?
I think the last paragraph line is very clear. Harnessing of occult forces is not to be regarded in any way as a substitute for the inner effort the aspirant must make to advance further. But the aspirant makes real progress by putting into practice the best intuitions of his heart, not by being the merely passive recipient of occult experiences. So I think that summarizes, how we respond to
occult. Yeah, very good. Great. So we'll just continue. Value of darshan and sahvas. Okay, we'll at least finish a couple of pages. For an aspirant to see a perfect master does not yield its full significance except in the context of all the corresponding happenings of the inner planes of consciousness. The rishis or sages attach great importance to having the darshan, contact through sight, of perfect masters, for they are the source of constant flow of love and light which emanates from them and makes an irresistible appeal to the inner feelings of the aspirant, even when he receives no verbal instructions from them. The effect of darshan is dependent upon the receptivity and response of the aspirant, whose reaction is determined by his own samskaras and past connections. Often, the aspirant is completely satisfied with the darshan of a master and he desires nothing from him. To derive bliss and contentment from the mere darshan of the master is a great thing because it indicates that the aspirant has desirelessness and love, which are the two essentials of spiritual life. Having had the darshan of the beloved master, the aspirant naturally desires nothing except to have more of his darshan and is thus impelled by his inner spiritual urge to seek the sahvas of the master as often as possible. Further sahvas of the master implements and strengthens the purifying effect of darshan and also results in drawing the aspirant closer and closer to the master on the inner planes. Feet of the master. Like darshan, falling at the feet of a master also has special value of its own. The feet, which are physically the lowest part of the body, are the highest from the spiritual point of view. Physically, the feet go through everything, good and bad, beautiful and ugly, clean and dirty. Yet they remain above everything. Spiritually, the feet of the masters are above everything in the universe, which is like dust to them. When people come to a perfect master and touch his feet with their hands, they lay the burden of their samskaras on him. He collects the samskaras from all over the universe, just as an ordinary person in walking collects dust on his feet. There is an ancient tradition that after the aspirant has the darshan of a master and falls at his feet, he washes the master's feet with milk and honey and places a coconut near them as his offering. Honey represents the red, bad samskaras. Milk represents white, good samskaras. And the coconut represents the mind. This convention, which has become established in some areas in connection with greeting the masters, really symbolizes throwing the burden of all sanskaras on the master and surrendering the mind to him. Adoption of this inner attitude constitutes the most critical and important step that the aspirant must take in order to get initiated on the spiritual path. With this, I will stop here at this time. So, as discussed and voted upon, we basically are going to do two things going forward. We will have this longish session every Saturday and Sunday. Today, we will have two items on our agenda. First, we start, as per the request, a song from Sanjay. And after the song, we will have Vidya come back from Shambhala and tell her more about herself and what her personal experience and journey has been with Baba. And we felt that was important for two reasons. One, she missed the intro session, and two, it's a very interesting aspect and journey. She's written a book about it, so it will be good for us to know about this. With that, I have a question. Should I stop recording right now or continue recording? Or should we create two files? So the reading file of recording, we can probably stop and restart a recording if everybody wants it that way.
Yes, you can have a second recording and keep it with the earlier conversations we had.
Exactly, will do.
Karthik, I